conflict.
Yeah, so Prince started his tour and did 13 dates before joining Rick James's Fire It Up tour.
How about FedEx?
How about him?
What do you think about
This is what I'm talking about. We're aware. There's no more need for awareness. FedEx could have very callously, very easily say, hey, you know what we're gonna do? People are upset about this whole name change thing. People are upset about this nickname thing. We're gonna put Black Lives Matters up and down the field. 40-40. That's what we're gonna do. Bow. There it is. Keep awareness going. We're going to put something honoring indigenous people on the field, or put an indigenous people patch on our uniforms, or a decal on the back of our helmet to make sure people are aware of the plights of indigenous people. And that'll be enough. There we go. Bow. Wipe our hands, problem solved. No, they didn't. They said, hey, we've got real clout. We've got real power. We are the sponsor of the field. We pay you guys good money. We have the power, the pull, the leverage to elicit some sort of real change for the better, and they used it. That's what I'm talking about. So when I see these decals, when I see courts with Black Lives Matters on it, when I see players possibly in the WNBA and NBA with different names on the back of their jerseys, that's all well and good, but what are you doing as an organization to really put your weight behind some of this stuff that really needs to change from a racism standpoint? How are you actually fighting racism? Raising awareness is not actually fighting racism. What FedEx is doing, though, is fighting racism and fighting racist stereotypes. So I loved it. I was like, okay, great. Now things are changing, man. This is different. I'm surprised. I'm pleasantly surprised by how quickly all of this is happening.
So what FedEx has done is they have said in a statement that they emailed out to various media folks, we have communicated to the team in Washington our request that they change the team name. Now, this is doubly important because not only does FedEx have the naming rights to the stadium, but that deal runs for the next 5 years, but also Fred Smith is a minority owner in the team. So that is a doubly important statement coming from him. Also, last night, Nike appeared to remove all Washington gear from the store. So the other teams were listed, no problem, but if you searched for the nickname of Washington, you came up with nothing at this point. And so that is potentially telling that Nike may be exerting their pressure, and that is a more considerable pressure. So Daniel Snyder has not wanted to change the name, has been very defiant against the name. The Oneida Tribe of Indians of Wisconsin asked FedEx shareholders to reconsider the naming rights back in 2014. That did not work at that particular time. Native American leaders have asked him to change the name in many, many different times. And the District of Columbia's non-voting delegate to the House, Eleanor Holmes Norton, has said that the nickname is going to have to be changed if the team ever wants to return to play in the District of Columbia, because although it is Washington, D.C.'s team, it plays in Virginia right now. So all of that is just continuing to put the pressure on Daniel Snyder to make this decision. Did you see somebody put a very detailed plan together that I thought was good, changing the name to the Washington Red Tails.
I saw that.
In honor of the Tuskegee Airmen. That would be great. The Tuskegee Airmen had the red tail. Their planes had red tails. That would be, I think, a really telling, important salute. You could keep basically the colors the same. You could keep most everything else the same. You just change the word skin to tail and go from there. Change that logo. There's some nice logo designs already out there. I think you're cooking with fish grease there. I think you're good to go. I really like that idea.
Don't like it at all. There's no reason for it to be that. I mean, I get it. I appreciate it as a graduate of Tuskegee University, but that's not the way we should honor our troops. That's not the way we should honor our history. To me, it would be kind of a trivializing act. We would it would be like naming a team the Atlanta Kings in honor of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Like that just doesn't feel necessary to me. There's a way to go about honoring the Tuskegee Airmen and their achievements and their accomplishments that is more beneficial and less silly, less of a caricature of what they went through during World War II. Whatever the name change doesn't have to be anything honoring any particular group of people. Like, it doesn't have to be that. It can be the Red Falcons for all I care, the Red Gulls or the Red Sharks or whatever. Like, it's just the nickname really, for me, is what they change it to. As long as it's not racially insensitive or flat out racist, I'm fine with it. I don't think it needs to be anything that is sort of capturing the moment, so to speak, something that is capitalizing on this moment of change. I don't think we need to do that, and I'm fine with it not being Red Tails. I get it. I appreciate it. I'm sure the Tuskegee Airmen appreciate it. Those of us still living right now, those of them who are still living right now, I'm sure they would love it. But I just think it would be, for lack of a better word, a bit too demeaning to honor them in that sort of a way. So just change it to Red Oaks. Change it to Red Foxes. Change it to, well, not the Red Fox, but like Red Fox 1X.
I like
although Red Fox, the Red Foxes, the Fighting Foxes would be kind of cool. But no, like just change the name from what it is. It doesn't have to have any type of sort of deeper meaning.
Let's go with the Red Foxes.
Let's go with the Red Foxes. Let's get it.
Let's do that. All
okay.
Right. Well, it's interesting because nicknames, if you go through the list of where they came from, some teams have nicknames that are very meaningful, that do honor individuals or groups in a certain way, and some don't. You know, some are you go back and there's a distinct history of why they did what they did with certain names, and then there's some that are just like, hey, like the Memphis Grizzlies. They had grizzly bears in Vancouver, so and then they're. But then if you look deeper, the colors that the Grizzlies chose for their original gear were done with the consultation of the Haida Native American or Native Canadian / American, because they're kind of right on that border there, indigenous peoples of Western British Columbia and Northwest Washington. They were done in consultation with them, and they felt like that was a good way to appreciate, and they were on board with it. You know what I mean? So it's like it totally depends on the process of how to do it. If that was something that the surviving Tuskegee Airmen wanted to be involved in the process, then I think that's something that would be illustrative and interesting. If they didn't, then you don't do it. It's I think there's other ways to do it. I'm fine with changing the name to whatever. If you want to keep it, red something, then you may have some limitations as to what you can do. But I saw somebody else, the idea, just change it to the Hogs. Because, the Hogs were the big offensive linemen. That's fine. Just change it. Just go Hogs. No problem. Or you could change it to whatever, really. I'm okay with it. As long as the process is properly done, then I'm fine with really whatever the outcome is. It's the process has got to be correctly done and respectful of everybody involved.
Yeah, I just don't understand what the connection would be for DC area fans and the city of Tuskegee, Alabama. Like that would be another thing. It would make sense if the team was relocating to Tuskegee. Like,
they are. Okay. That's another breaking news.
Are they moving down to Tuskegee?
Yes.
Well, they're gonna be really disappointed. Ain't nothing in Tuskegee.
Yeah,
they got a
weird.
Popeyes this year.
It's a weird move.
Losing my mind.
It's a weird move. I'll tell you that.
So the connection there just doesn't make sense. But yeah, just throw red in front of whatever. Red Hogs or just the Hogs, Red Barracuda. Take it back to Legend of the. Although those were Purple Bears, Blue Barracuda. Take it back to Legends of the Hidden Temple, Red Barons. Let's get them going. Let's get it. Just have delicious ass pizza out there. We're gonna serve Red Barons at the game. The 4 cheese, put a little seasoning salt on top. Mwah. We're gonna get after it during the game. Like whatever. Just throw red in front of something that is not racist. Let's get it.
Purple parrots.
Purple parrots, blue barracudas.
Monkeys,
what who are the monkeys?
It's like orange monkeys or something like that. I think it was
silver monkeys.
Silver monkeys.
Silver monkeys,
Yeah,
blue
silver
barracudas.
Monkeys. Yeah.
We said purple parrot.
Iguanas? Was there iguanas?
The green iguanas?
Green iguana, something like that. I think there was an iguana or lizard of some sort. I think was involved. I got to go back and Olmec. The Olmecs. How about that?
Okay, let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's honor Nickelodeon. Name them the Olmecs.
Before the game, it's like, all right, everybody, time to play the game.
And to get a touchdown, you have to run.
Put that thing in the state. Yeah.
Not only do you have to avoid being tackled by the opponent, but you've got to run through the Olmec temple and complete the task before those random people jump out and attack you.
That finishing bonus round for Legends of the Hidden Temple and Carmen Sandiego's have to put the 8 things on the giant map.
Yeah.
Impossible.
No.
I've never seen anyone. They could have put a solid gold yacht as the grand. No one would never going to get it.
The issue with the Legends of the Hidden Temple thing is, depending on, they really punished you if you didn't just blow out everybody else.
Correct.
Because you
needed
both of the pieces.
Yep,
you needed 2 of the medallions. You only got half a medallion for each time you beat somebody. Yep. You needed both medallions.
You got to run the score.
You needed 2 medallions. Run that score all the way up so that when those random people who are protecting the treasure jump out at you, you can just give them the medallion and keep running. Also, when you have to stack the monkey statue, for some reason that was throwing people off. Biggest piece is bottom. Second biggest piece is next. Then the shortest piece is the one on top. But people are always putting it in the wrong way.
Also facing the wrong direction.
Got to face it the right way, people.
Yeah. This is very tough.
You and I will kill. We will merge that game. We'd handle it.
No question. No question. Hopefully they'll bring that back in the adult version.
Yes.
That would be great. Not adult, but you know what I mean. We'll come back. We'll talk about the next step in this process. We'll talk more about Maker making his decision. We'll talk about the scrubble that's going on in Chicago and the MLS bubble, which is a little bit leaky. We'll do all that when we return. Discussed this week in the NFL. The variety of measures being discussed on the as a sort of a symbol of what the NFL is trying to do and what they're trying to say in honor of the Black Lives Matter movement and in respect and awareness of what's going on. The NFL very good at symbols, not as good at action, but very good at symbols, and so this is something that would certainly be a powerful and different symbol. There's no question about that. CJ, how do you feel about Lift Every Voice and Sing being played before every Week 1 game, either performed live or at least played?
We talked about Lift Every Voice and Sing, I feel like last week when we talked about things the NBA could do, the little things, the bunch of little things the NBA could do that would add up to something big. And I'm cool with it. I like it. Before, as a proud graduate of Tuskegee University, TU, somebody in Tuskegee said as a proud graduate, like we sang Lift Every Voice and Sing before every major event before. So if it was an event that would require the national anthem be played, Lift Every Voice and Sing was sung as well. Somebody actually, we had a recording. This is what it was for football games. We had a recording of the national anthem. We had a singer for Lift Every Voice and Sing. So I really like the song. I'm fond of the song. I can't sing it. Don't know all the lyrics. I got you Lift Every Voice and Sing, and then I start humming, but I've read the lyrics. One of the assignments I had in freshman orientation was explicating that particular song and what it would mean, and a song about a group of people seeking freedom, a group of people continuing to strive towards freedom and what freedom means for them. I think is a beautiful song and a beautiful thing to use as your anthem. Now, I would make a push for that to be the new national anthem in general. because I feel like that encapsulates more of the American ideal, the American dream, than bombs bursting in the air, talking about war and things like that. This is a nation that seeks freedom, that fights on behalf of freedom, that goes out there to be free and yearns for complete and total freedom of its citizens. And that song encapsulates all of those things. And I think it's great. I don't know why they would just stop at week 1. It is a symbol. So why not just keep it going? Just, hey, we got 2 songs coming up. We're going to do Lift Every Voice and Sing, and we're going to do the national anthem every single week of the football season, assuming that we get one. And then when Super Bowl comes around, we can go America the Beautiful, Lift Every Voice and Sing, and bow national anthem, and roll with the football game from there. So I like it, but I'm biased. I really like that song. I don't know if you guys got a chance to play it, Zach, during Juneteenth at all, but it's a good song, and it is a gesture, a symbol. I hope that it's not an empty one from the NFL. I would like to see the NFL, speaking of people actually throwing their weight behind some of these things. FedEx is actually throwing their weight behind getting Washington to change their name. The Nike is actually throwing some weight behind it. DC has been throwing weight behind it. I would like to see the NFL throw their weight behind the name change in Washington, and not just settle for empty symbols and empty gestures to try and distract us from what is going on.
Well, it is interesting that you bring this up as a wider ranging discussion, because I think it's important to have it, quite honestly, and it's one that I've been wanting to have for a little while, and it's I think it's come up organically here. You know, we have wrestled with, as a country, a lot of the issues and a lot of the things that have made us what we are. A lot of good, a lot of bad, and you have, like anyone else, you have to kind of wrestle with what's happened and think about it and put it in context and try to do the best you can with the information that you have. You don't want to sanitize or whitewash the history because it can be brutal and it can be difficult, but in order to truly understand why we are where we are, you have to come to grips with it. You have to work on that. That is true of the national anthem. The national anthem was written by somebody named Francis Scott Key. Who was Francis Scott Key? Francis Scott Key was a lawyer. When the song was, or the poem was written in 1814, it wasn't the national anthem until many, many years later. He was part of a system. He was a slaveholder himself. His family was a plantation family from Maryland. It was written in 1814 in the midst of the War of 1812, when at Fort McHenry you saw the bombardment of British ships that were in Baltimore Harbor. The difficult thing to wrestle with in that context, not only was Francis Scott Key a slaveholder, not only was he writing and has had many, many things to say about black people, none of them very good, but in that moment when he's writing about the bombardment of British ships at Fort McHenry, which is what was the genesis for the whole poem, in all likelihood, based on what we know about the War of 1812 and based on what we know about what the situation was at the time, there were slaves trying to get to those ships, because that was a avenue of them to find freedom. There were many, many slaves who went and went with and tried to join up with the British troops in order to try to find some bit of freedom and liberty, knowing that is a much more likely option for them to have that liberty with those troops. And so, in all likelihood, those bombs that were bursting in air were bombs bursting and killing slaves trying to find their freedom. Again, we don't like to wrestle with that kind of concept as a nation of what that meant, but that's what that means. When you think about that, you have to think about the context of that song and where it was. I mean, that doesn't. None of us growing up learned. I certainly didn't learn it that way. It doesn't mean that any of us were complicit in those activities or anything like that, or have any kind of support for those activities. But by the same token, when you learn about it, is it not then incumbent upon us to explore a different option, something else to consider? Because that's that's at least as far as I'm concerned, that's not what I want to be the standard bearer for the country and for what this country is all about.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's we're at a pivotal point in our history where we're getting to live it. We're getting to shape what this nation will be for generations to come right now. And it's very, and we know we're in this moment. We know it. Very rarely are you in a moment and you're in the moment that's going to be talked about in textbooks. And it's time for us to take a long, hard look at what we want to be as a nation and how we want not only the kids today, but the kids that have come behind those kids 3-4 generations later, what we want them to think about this nation and how we want them to view it. With the national anthem as it stands right now, on top of all of that you just said, very real points, very real things that we need to wrestle with on the long list of things that we need to wrestle with over here as a whole. It's a song about war. Like, is that what we want to be? Do we want to simply be the war nation? No, that is not what we want to be. That's not what we are. We're a nation that values freedom, that works hard to not only ensure that its citizens are as free as possible, but that others are free as well. We do that a multitude of different ways. Not always by war, not always by dropping bombs or looking at bombs bursting in midair like rockets. That's not what we are. That's not one of the ideals that we were founded on. We were founded on, this is going to be a place of freedom. That's what this place is. And so when you hear Lift Every Voice and Sing, and when you look at the lyrics to Lift Every Voice and Sing, and hear the way that freedom is glorified in that particular hymn, and it started off as a gospel song that Black people adopted as their anthem. But when you look at the lyrics and you see how freedom is glorified and how we work towards freedom, and we're not going to stop until we're completely and totally free, I feel like that song does a better job encapsulating what the American ideals are and what the American experience strives to be. So again, I'm glad that the NFL is doing this. I hope that it goes on longer than just that first weekend. And I think that we should look at it's about time. We can change this national anthem whenever we feel like. And I think it's about time for us to take a long, hard look at that anthem and really make some tweaks to what we consider our national anthem.
Well, I think it's just, at the very least, it needs to be contextualized in a different way. I would be fine with, and I think I'd be great actually with changing the national anthem to Lift Every Voice and Sing. I think it is a more inspiring song. I don't think that the Star Spangled Banner is a particularly great anthem just on its merits as a song. It's hard to sing. It's kind of, like America the Beautiful or something like that is a little easier to sing. God Bless America, that's a little easier to sing.
R. Kelly did his damn thing.
No one is trying to whitewash R. Kelly.
For what R. Kelly is, he's a terrible human being. R. Kelly
liquid wash anything for R. Kelly. No one's trying to do that at all. but
think about that. If we decided, hey, you know what? We're going to have R. Kelly's version of the national anthem be the national anthem. Like, after learning about who R. Kelly was as a person, you're like, no, we can't rock with this anymore. As groovy as this song is, somebody.
Yeah,
we can't roll with
Francis
this
Scott
anymore.
Key did not say somebody.
No, he didn't. But
somebody.
we can't
Francis,
roll
what was
with,
that part? What was that part, dude?
We can't roll with that song anymore. So after
come on, y'all, clap your hands. Was that in there?
No, I don't think it was.
No.
So after learning who Francis Scott Key is, and knowing what was going on at that time, and understanding the world differently than it has been understood in the 1900, 1910, 1920, 1930, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, all the way up to this point. After learning that and understanding that, I think we can say, you know what, we don't need to rock with this no more. If you can do that with R. Kelly, you can certainly do it with Francis Scott Key.
Does Do you know the second verse of Lift Every Voice and Sing?
Do I know the words after Lift Every Voice and Sing? That is the question, Peter Edmondson.
Well, because I feel like if it's going to be the national anthem, then it's got to also be a thing where no one knows any of the other lyrics.
No.
Anyone, because there's plenty of other verses to the Star Spangled Banner. No one knows them at all. Yeah,
oh my gosh, I about lost it. So we played on MLK Day in high school, and our chorus teacher decided he was going to honor us by singing, and he only came out for the big games. Nobody was there. I don't know why he was there, but he only came out for the big games. So he was out there for the big game on MLK Day, and he was going to sing the national anthem. And the announcer says, "Please rise. We've got Dr. So-and-so out here." He's going to actually be singing the second verse of the national anthem to commemorate this special occasion. And so in my head, I'm like, yo, how in the hell does this commemorate Dr. King's legacy? 1, 2, who knew there was a second verse? And he sang the hell out of that second verse. I was crying because I was laughing. I was shaking on the bench trying not to laugh. And my coach had to come over to me and CJ, "Stop it. We hear you laughing." That's how empty the gym was. Afterwards, I'm like, how do you guys expect me to go out here for tip-off? This dude just sang the second verse of the anthem. Second verse of Star Spangled Banner.
What a choice. What a choice that is.
Parents in the,
That's a
in
strong
the crowd.
choice.
Just like, okay, please rise for the national anthem. In honor of today's special event, we're going to honor Dr. King's legacy by singing the second verse of the Star Spangled Banner. And you can hear the parents just murmur like, wait, what? Where's the second? What is happening? How's there a second verse? Draymond Green's reaction to Fergie, that was my reaction times 10.
Oh, I just think it would be interesting to see that contextualized, like the same way that we contextualize the Declaration of Independence, and we know that Thomas Jefferson was let's say complicated, his legacy is not necessarily straightforward. When you talk about the idea that you're declaring independence, and yet you in one stage of your life are quite against the concept of slavery, and then by the end of it you are an extraordinarily massive slaveholder and are deeply protective of the practice. And so he's a complicated guy, but we put that into context. We put the Emancipation Proclamation into context generally and say, Lincoln was problematic. It wasn't necessarily he wasn't just like perfect in every way. No, he had a lot of deeply held beliefs that ran counter to the Emancipation Proclamation, that ran counter to freedom of all, equality, all that stuff. But you put that in context. We talk about that. We don't contextualize the Star Spangled Banner. Mm-hmm. That's what I find is interesting. We contextualize the other stuff. We don't really contextualize we haven't had that discussion. And I think I'm glad that you brought it up, because I think that is a worthy discussion to have, to put it in the proper context. Because I think you got to go one of two ways if you're gonna do this as a country. You can either scrap it and find something different, like Lift Every Voice and Sing. I'm okay with that. Or you can take it and try to repurpose it and try to meaningfully look at it and recontextualize it in a new way, meaningfully. That I think is something you could do as well. And people can go in different directions with it. Reclaim it, so to speak. That's possible too. I'm okay with that as well. But you just have to have that conversation, because I think letting that sit there. Like, I'm reading the official history from like the National Park Service, and it's like, you can't. No, there's none of the realness is not there. There's no mention of the slaveholding. There's no mention of the context, any of that stuff, and we can't do that. You're just whitewashing history at that point.
We got time for a quick call. Tony has dialed in. Tony, what's going on?
Hey, what's going on, man? I commend you guys for talking about issues like this. Because you got a segment that believe you just should shut up and dribble. But, the fact that we are coming up on Independence Day, mm-hmm. and first of all, we need to get our history books to tell the truth. Had it not been for Black Americans, this country would have never got its freedoms. that the war when we started in 1776, what turned the war was that George Washington had to create what was a secret agency, and 80% of them were black. They were servants that was serving the British upper what we call officers, and they were sending coded messages back to General Washington, because the Americans were losing the war. And actually, it's a book called Turn that I suggest everybody read, and it actually tells and what led up to the war 1812, and then how black people went in the midst of getting this country's freedom, how it was a big debate on giving freedom to all of them, but the South was like, no. And that's how it got created, about the 5/8 of a human being that was put in the Constitution. But I think that if people actually read the Constitution, I think black folks would be more proud to be American citizens. And I think white people would be more understanding why black folks are somewhat pissed off. And where right now, because of where we at in the nation right now, is why you're seeing some disruption. But this country was built on those type of things from the offset, from the beginning. This is what our country was built on. So I commend you guys for not shutting up and dribbling today, and actually open up a can of worms that might make you, to some people, unpopular. But other people should pull up and listen, cut their radio up today, because, hey, man, you guys are being very powerful today. But we also should push for truthness in our history books, because there are an array of people that are not mentioned in the history books that should be there. I mean, black guys that should be founding fathers that is not even listed in some history books. You got some that's come close to the truth, but we should always want the truth in building our history, so we don't never repeat it again, or we should honor it in a way that in truth. So I just keep it like that. I mean, I say this, about 80% of Americans say they're Christians. Well, if you're Christian and you read the Bible like I do, you should always want the truth.
All right, Tony, we appreciate the call,
Thanks,
man.
Tony.
Thank you.
You have to. I think these are just, you don't need to be afraid of having these conversations. You don't need to we got to wrestle with it, man. It's something you got to wrestle with. It's not easy. It's not easy to do that stuff, man. But as we talked about a few weeks ago, I mean, why isn't Juneteenth taught in most schools? Why wasn't it? Why? Maybe it will be from now, but why hasn't it been? Why didn't you learn about some of the massacres that have gone on in Memphis? I mean, for example, there's so many. We didn't learn about here growing up in our schools. The real story, that kind of stuff. So when you start talking about lift every voice and sing and playing it, that's a good step. But as we look at Independence Day, let's put this thing in context. Let's really keep pushing this thing, man. Let's keep pushing this thing. We're making progress here. Let's keep pushing. That's what I hope continues to happen. We'll see.
We really got to get to this text.
Okay, get to it.
Right. Well, no, we're going to need time on this text.
Okay.
We need to get to it next.
All right. Well, how about we come back and we get to the text? Can you give us any kind of a preview of it?
Your boy was being your boy yesterday, and we missed it. So we got to get to this.
All right. Okay. Well, we'll do that when we return here from the Family Leisure Center.
On sports. The word is out about our...
as we do every Friday around this time, we bring on our pal Kari Thompson from The Commercial Appeal. You can follow him on Twitter @_Kari Thompson. He is covering preps, of course, for The Commercial Appeal, and we got to talk about Maker, Kari Thompson, because this is a spectacular surprise of potentially epic proportions. We talked about this, I don't know, a year ago. It's been a while, but and I was saying maybe this could happen, and we always said, like, you got to see it happen before you can believe it. Somebody's going to have to actually make this decision. Somebody's going to have to go. 5-star kid's going to have to go to an HBCU for this thing to change potentially. Well, Maker is that guy. He has committed to Howard University. Kari, your thoughts?
Well, I like that word you used, Peter, epic. You know, when I think of this decision, you know, the words that come to mind are epic, groundbreaking, trailblazing. I mean, I think this really could be the start of something because, like you said, man, you have to see it happen, and now we have seen it happen. And let me tell you, the reason why he picked Howard, well, having him pick Howard in particular is impressive because I don't know if you've been to the Burr Gymnasium in Washington, D.C., but I've spent lots of times there, and Briarcrest probably has a bigger gym than the Burr Gym. So, you know, he's not in it for the crowds, clearly, because he's going to Howard. You know, he's in it for the experience, and I think that's important. I think that's something other kids should pay attention to.
Yeah, it is. It is huge, and it is important. It's something that kids should be paying attention to. Maker is going to be there for a year, maybe. Assuming that the NCAA doesn't come in and do something wacky, he'll be there for a year, and then he'll bounce and go pro. So if you're only going to be there for a year, and then you can go back out as always and finish your college education. But if you're only going to be on that college campus, getting that college experience for a year, why not make it someplace truly fun and someplace that is going to do a real good job of teaching you about your people and your people's history. And I think that is the thing that I would push, and I would say to high school athletes who are got pro aspirations, and in general, high school students in general. Like, why not go someplace you have your whole life to be the only one of you in a room? Why not go someplace else where you can be around like-minded people who look like you and who are striving for the same things that you're striving towards? So this is huge, and major kudos to Howard and their ability to go out there and get a maker. And we've seen we've seen small colleges. We've seen one player take over tournaments, like Steph Curry at Davidson. I feel like John Morant, another one of those. Gonzaga's not a small-time college, but you think about what Adam Morrison was able to do when he was at Gonzaga and carry their team to a deep run in the tournament.
Obi Toppin is doing.
Obi Toppin was going to do it. Maker could do this for Howard, don't you think, Carr?
Yeah, I think so. You know, but I think more important than the on-court performance is that we just have a concrete example of someone who can do it, you know, because Maker's not going to be the only one who does this. He's going to be the first. Mm-hmm. And I think that's part of the appeal. Howard, if they were smart, probably pitched that. They were probably like, dude, you could make history. You could be the one. You could be the first 5-star since they started ranking 5 stars to do this and go here and build a new legacy. I mean, that to me, you know, if you pitch that to a certain type of kid, I think that is appealing because his name is going to go down in the history books. Like this day here in 2020 is a big one. Like it may not feel huge to everyone right now, but we're going to look back on this 10 years from now. You'd be like, yo, Maker started something.
Wish Howard or one of the other MEAC schools would have got a recruit like this before the conference. I
was like, is there a MEAC for him to play in? I mean, this is
right. The MEAC could get a school. MEAC's WAC routinely the worst 2 basketball conferences in America. The MEAC could get a school in the Sweet 16 this year and then fold after this season, which is wild to me.
Yeah, well, hopefully Delaware State is like the pin that's holding this all together. If they leave, they lose their football eligibility. But Delaware State has said that they're committed to staying. So my hopes are that the MEAC can hang on by a thread. But, yeah, you're right, CJ, in that it's sad to see what happened to the MEAC. Like I always like to think of the MEAC as like the black ACC. Like it's the same. It's the schools in the same footprints. It's your HBCUs that are in Virginia, in North Carolina. Got a little Florida in there. So, you know, it's the black ACC. So it's really sad to see it go the way it's going. But it's also, I mean, the SWAC has been strengthened in all of this. So that's something that we can't ignore because they've added 2 great schools. And the SWAC is the black SEC. The SWAC is the black D1 SEC. That's what it is. So, I think it's good for the SWAC, but bad for the MEAC that FAMU and Bethune are heading over there.
Maybe they could just rebrand themselves the BLACC.
Oh, I see what you did there.
Yeah, and be done with it right there. I think
HBACC.
Yeah, I mean, I think that'd be a lot of fun right there. You could have some fun with that. Now, the idea that this is a trailblazing situation, Kari, it's interesting because Memphis had been one of the teams that was peeking in and seeing what's going on with Maker, along with Kentucky, several other teams, and the G League route was discussed as well with him. Obviously, with Thon and the NBA and all that, but this now as the opportunity. We had talked about it before. That if just one kid does it and it all works out fine, and assuming that everything is, as there is a season and that we play and all that stuff, if Maker goes through this season and is still a top pick and is still a lottery pick and still has a great draft chance, does this not then open the door for everybody to see that this is now a proof of concept to say, hey, this didn't affect his draft status one iota, he's good to go? And I think this is potentially a whole new set of challenges for some of these coaches at a lot of these schools.
Yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely right on that, Peter. I think that, there's just a stigma, man. There's a perception that the HBCUs are less than when it comes to sports and academics too. But if Maker is a lottery pick next year, that blows the cover off of it. It's like, okay, I can go to an HBCU and still be a lottery pick, chill, do my 1 year and be out. Like, I think that's attractive for a one and done, especially when you look at these HBCUs, and it's gonna put some eyes on Howard because Howard's actually a great school. Like Howard is nationally ranked. Howard is in DC. I mean, like it's got a lot of things going for it that people just aren't as aware of, and so If I'm a high school recruit and I know that I'm in it for 1 year, 2 years tops, man, let me hang out in DC with some people that look like me.
Right.
Or let me go down to Daytona Beach for a year, what I'm saying? Or hang out in Hampton. What I'm saying? Just anywhere but the ski, right?
Oh,
right,
okay. All right. Careful there. This Tuskegee slander will not stand on this show, especially not on the eve of our founding, man. No. July 4th, 1980 or 1881, excuse me. Tuskegee was founded. I'm not going to deal with any Tuskegee slander today. I'm celebrating tomorrow, baby.
Who founded Tuskegee, by the way?
A man by the name of Booker T. Washington.
Where did he go?
He went to school. He graduated from a small university in Virginia named Hampton. But he, upon graduating, he took a look around and said, nah, this ain't it, and went down and opened up a better college down in Tuskegee, Alabama.
He said, I'm going to do my own thing, huh?
Yeah. He said, nah, I can't kick it in Hampton. They not doing a good enough job. I got to make it better. That's why they call Tuskegee the better version of Hampton.
Booker T, who actually has a high school named after him here in Memphis, actually walked. You can look this up. If you want to go to Hampton so bad, he walked to Hampton Roads, Virginia, from West Virginia. It's a true story.
Yes. No, he did. We had to read his book, Up From Slavery, I do believe. We had to read the biography. Walked to college. Man.
That's dedication.
Education matters, man.
So we talk about you got to learn these things. So we talk about game changers, trailblazers, all that. We're doing that with Kari Thompson of the Commercial Appeal. He is at _ Kari Thompson. So Kari, then what the game changing situation in the world right now? Coronavirus, COVID is a problem. I don't know if I'm breaking any news there, but it's a problem. Everybody, just FYI. So be careful. I don't know if you heard about it. It's this new thing.
Heard about what now?
Yeah, it's called COVID. COVID-19. Yeah. So it's, I know. It's
okay,
crazy.
I'm gonna check into that.
So not good. You don't want any part of that. While you check into that, let me tell you, it's causing some problems for schools. And Kari, there's been some meetings and some discussions online this week about how to do the restart and what's going to happen. But with the governor pushing the state of emergency declaration back to August 29th, TSSAA not allowing any activity to happen for that time period means that football, at the very least, is going to be pushed way back, and other sports as well. What's the latest here?
So the TSSAA has proposed 3 different plans for football. And basically, plan 1 is you play 7 regular season games and 32 teams. I think 4 teams from each region make the playoffs. And they kind of truncate it that way. So you lose your first couple games. Plan number 2, you do an 8-game regular season and you have a shorter playoff. You have 16 teams make the playoff, like the top 2 teams from each region. Plan number 3 is you do a 9-game regular season and only take the region champs and have a very short playoff, and just let them play each other. So those are the plans that TSSAA laid out on their meeting this week. Girls soccer is obviously affected as well. And clearly, with the governor's emergency order into effect, the season is not starting until September at the earliest for football or girls soccer, because they're deemed contact sports. Basketball is also deemed a contact sport, so that might even affect when basketball tryouts can be held, depending on, because we don't know whether the governor is going to extend his order or not. You know what I'm saying? Because let's face it, the odds. I don't like our odds of having a vaccine by then, by September. So we could just be in another mode of extending it again. So there's real concern with the season being pushed back and perhaps not even having a season.
So if we doomsday scenario that the season gets pushed back to the point where you just can't have a season, what might this do for recruiting then? Like for recruiting upcoming juniors and seniors, people who are going to be graduating, what might that do for that? How might coaches at the collegiate level be impacted, and these high school kids impacted as well?
Well, it's gonna have a big impact, CJ, because you have a lot of kids out there who are seniors who need this year to be seen and to get their shot. You know what I'm saying? There are kids out there who might not have the offers right now that might blow up and have a big senior year. There are kids out there with a few offers who could go to even bigger, more prestigious schools. And those kids legitimately might not get their chance to be seen. And then if you don't have a season and you can't see the kids, well, it's all on the coaches. It's on the coaches' word of mouth. It's who do you trust and who do you talk to? You know what I'm saying? It's old school. It's like we're calling up high school coaches here and seeing what they think, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. But it's more of a reliance on trust and videotape and social media versus actually going there and watching a kid on the sideline. So, offers will still be made. Schools will still have to fill rosters. But there's a difference between talking about a kid on the phone and pulling up to a high school and going to see him.
Well, and this is where you have so many challenges because, we were seeing in professional sports and in college sports the difficulty of trying to balance safety with, wanting to have these activities and wanting to be able to do this and to have some kind of normality. And, you'll see districts around the country, Kari, doing different things. There'll be, some that'll be able to do it, some that won't. But I can't stress this enough for everybody out there. A lot of this is impacted by all of us slowing this spread down. The reason why this state of emergency had to be extended in the first place is because the case rates have gone up at such a precipitous level. And you see it around, Nashville has really had 600 cases yesterday. We had 390 some. I mean, and they're going up throughout the country. In that kind of environment, you can't have normality. If we could have brought this thing back down, maybe you could. So I would urge everybody, start now. If you want it to happen, we got to start now, and we got to get these numbers down over the next month or two. Then you can start having those meetings, because if they don't, you can forget about having a season.
Correct. Look, man, I know if everything I know about Americans, I know we love to shop. So Hop online, hop on Amazon, go mask shopping, get you a designer mask, get you a nice one, get you all different colors. Like, come on, like, let's do this. Like, you know what I'm saying? Get swag out, start matching your outfits to your mask. Like, come on, let's get it popping. I want to have a football season, guys. Can we have it? I want a football season. Wear your mask. Social distance.
I don't know. I mean, because here's the deal. China, Japan, Korea, Vietnam, Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, the Philippines, Australia, and the European Union combined, averaging over the last 7 days 6,760 new cases. That's a combined population of 2.6 billion people. Florida, yesterday, with 21 million, announced 10,100 cases.
Dang. And we're sending the whole NBA there.
And we're sending everyone down there. Oh.
Yeah. Sending the teams down there.
I mean, just
to the Rona capital of the world.
I mean, it is just it's. I mean, I sort of run out of words at this point. Car, you are as looking at these things and trying to figure it out. Do you think this thing's going to happen? Do you think the NBA bubble? I mean, we talked about MLS. MLS is having its problems big time already, trying to get their bubble situation squared away. And they're about a week or two ahead of where the NBA is going to be. They'll fly down next week if all goes well. They'll fly down next week into Orlando. Is this thing gonna pop off? Is it gonna happen?
Man, I mean, if you want my real answer, like
I always want your real answer. Come on.
I'm not basing this on science, man. I'm basing this on fact. For real, like if the real, because the science is what makes sense. But I'm not a science expert. I did bad in chemistry class in high school. Like I don't know these things. But like I really think that like with the whole coronavirus thing, I think that there's like a higher power trying to send a message that like, yo, the world needs to chill out for a little bit and just not do all the normal things that we do. Oh. But I think that our culture is
this is what happens when Kyrie plays for the Celtics. This is the kind of stuff that starts happening.
That third eye's been activated.
I'm gonna start calling him Kyrie Thompson joining us.
Man, yeah. I mean, we're so
go on, Kyrie. Tell us about the world. Is it flat, or what are we doing here? We got?
No, hey, we're so money driven that it's not because it's safe to play that we're going down to the NBA and playing basketball games. It's because we're losing money. And when you look at it that way,
speak on it.
I don't think that there's speak on it. I don't think that there's, I don't think that, if you approach it that way, I don't think, it's going to turn out the way you want it to turn out to.
That's
not
right.
by acting out of financial gain versus safety. So that's just it applies to everything. It applies to high school football. It applies to college. It applies to sports at all levels. That's really what I think is that, this Rona is nothing to play around with, and yet we're still trying to be out here playing games.
And ironically, us playing games means we're not going to be able to play games.
Exactly.
Quote that famous philosopher: "Stop playing games, yo."
Kyrie Thompson joining us every Friday for more of his philosophical insights. This is real. Emphasis on the real.
This is
on the real sports talk. That's where it is right now. Well, I hope we have more enjoyable things for you to write about soon, Kyrie. But in the meantime, I would appreciate if you could maybe see if you can convince the folks at Commercial Appeal to let you do editorial every now and then, because I think the people, you have some thoughts I think people would like to enjoy.
Appreciate that, Peter, man. Yeah, let me holler at them real quick.
Columnist / right. All right, man. Have a good one.
Thanks, Car.
Yeah, take it easy, guys.
All right. Kyrie. I think it's going to stick. I like that.
Yes.
Opening that third eye for everybody.
Yeah.
I just had to when he says, let's talk about the higher power once. Whoa,
Boom,
uh-oh.
right there. Anytime anybody mentions the higher power.
Here we go. Here we go.
Perk up a little bit. Like,
Now
okay,
it's
where's
time.
this going?
Now we're talking. Now we're getting
Yeah.
somewhere. This is the real.
The real.
Y'all probably can't handle that. Y'all probably can't handle it.
That's what we give you.
Sometimes you learn things.
Mm-hmm.
That's all. Life is funny, man. Open that third eye. Open your ears. Open your heart. You never know what you're gonna find.
Especially with that third eye. It takes you
talking
to
to
some
you, Zach.
far out places.
Talking to you, Zach.
Oh, to open the heart thing.
Mm-hmm. Open that third eye. Open that third hand. Start texting somebody. Whatever you got to do, make it happen. Come on, man. We'll take a break. We'll come back. We'll spin that wheel of conversation. We'll bask in the fact that Mike Gundy's been reviewed and is not racist. So that's good news, everybody. We'll do all that when we continue. Real Sports Talk, Sports 56, 96.1, 87.7.
Want to get your voice heard? Hit us.
FedEx, our title and presenting sponsor, the big Fortune 500 company here in the city of Memphis, and we got a few of them. But FedEx has asked the Redskins to change its name. Quote, we have communicated to the team in Washington our request that they change the team's name. Fred Smith, founder of FedEx, part of the ownership group of the Redskins. FedEx Field is where they play in Landover, Maryland. Now, a couple of other big sponsors have been called upon to do something similar. And according to reports, Nike has pulled Redskins apparel out of their stores. And they still await something from Pepsi-Cola, the Pepsi-Cola bottling company. But now Dan Snyder, who has said numerous times that the Redskins will not change its nickname, that the Native Americans that they have spoken to are in favor, 90% of them, of keeping the Redskins name, that they think it's not negative, although we look at it and go, my gosh. But it's been a tradition. It's been around for all these years. In this time, Eli, in what has happened over the last couple of months, Dan Snyder being backed into the corner is probably going to have to come out and make a change as opposed to come out swinging. What do you think?
Well, the Redskins released a statement today, including quotes from both Dan Snyder and Ron Rivera. The statement says, in light of recent events around our country and feedback from our community, the Washington Redskins are announcing the team will undergo a thorough review of the team's name. This review formalizes the initial discussions the team has been having with the league in recent weeks. Dan Snyder says, quote, this process allows the team to take into account not only the proud tradition and history of the franchise, but also input from our alumni, the organization, sponsors, the National Football League, and the local community it is proud to represent on and off the field. Ron Rivera says this issue is of personal importance to me, and I look forward to working closely with Dan Snyder to make sure we continue the mission of honoring and supporting Native Americans and our military.
Is Ron Rivera part Native American, or is it Hispanic? What's his ethnicity?
I believe Hispanic, but I don't know for sure.
Okay.
I'm not sure on that.
But this is, and I read the story yesterday that was posted. I forget. I know Will Kane had either retweeted it or posted the story. And it talked about many Native Americans who were polled, said that they've always supported the Redskins. That's their team, that the name was not negative to them. But I don't see how it isn't. What's important really is how they feel, right? Who am I to say what's right or wrong with, even though to me, red skin, it doesn't sound politically correct, but it's always been there. There are some sportscasters that refuse to say the name Redskin, but it's always been there. Just because it's tradition doesn't mean it can't change. Look at what's happened in Mississippi with the state flag. But what's important are the Native Americans themselves. Do they feel that they are being honored by this, or do they feel that it is derogatory and demeaning and belittling? Remember, there are other names that are used that are associated with Native Americans, from just the word Indians to Seminoles and on and on and on. So I don't know if you're going to sit here and poll every single Native American and ask them what they think. I think Snyder, again, with the possibility of losing all these huge sponsors, because when it comes down to it, it's about the money, one, the politics too. And when it's hitting your bottom line, changes usually happen.
Yeah, I mean, when you have the company that paid you a whole bunch of money to put their name on your field, and and the man who owns that company is one of your owners, that's hard to just say no to. You're pretty much in that point like, okay, yeah, we're in a position where unless they can get a whole bunch of Native Americans to come out and say that they are like they want them to keep the name. Mm-hmm. I don't know how you possibly keep the name.
And this isn't about face for Fred Smith and FedEx, because again, they've always been a supporter. He being a part owner of the team, minority owner, they've obviously supported it with the name being intact for all these years. But now it's a whole different world we live in, a very socially conscious world. If you're watching me on any visual apparatus, you see me fighting a gnat that's coming after me, attack gnat. But it's different now. So I really do believe there's a change that is probably going to happen. And there are going to be a lot of people that are unhappy. Redskins, their followers, their supporters. I mean, if it changes, they'll eventually get used to it, but they're not going to like it. Just like a lot of people in Mississippi and in the South didn't like the change of the flag in Mississippi. Eventually, you get over it. Now,
first of all, if you're a Redskins fan, you're an idiot to begin with.
Well,
so,
that's your Cowboys bias.
You have to understand
talking.
that these people that are Redskins fans clearly have had issues in their past.
I've had a lot. Well, I have a lot of friends from going to school at the University of Maryland, from living in Maryland for 10 years, working in television. I have a lot of friends who are big proponents of the Redskins, supporters of the Redskins, and of that nickname. So I know how tough it's going to be for some of these people, but I think it's the right thing if they decide to go down that avenue. But again, it's not the simple thing, it's the hard thing, because it's not easy to get an opinion from every single Native American in the country. But I would love to hear from the majority what they believe. Because again, if they say, no, it honors us, who the hell am I to say change it? But just on the surface, Redskin is pretty derogatory. So we got that going on, and I think that's going to have legs, and maybe we'll hear something here soon. Snyder's been very, very stubborn, but again, when it hits the bottom line, which is financially, then all bets are off. Also this morning, the Naval Academy lost a game for the upcoming college football season, as Lafayette College, an FCS school, has pulled out of their game September 12th. They basically are saying because of COVID-19, because of all the restrictions and things of that nature, that we just won't be ready to go in September for football. So Navy now is looking for a replacement on September 12th to play football. And we may see a little bit more of this, maybe a lot more of this as we move forward.
Wasn't there a Division II or Division III school that said they aren't playing their football season?
Yeah, Morehouse.
Was that what I remember seeing something that somebody? There may have actually been a couple of them that said they weren't going to play.
Yeah, Morehouse College has said that, but I think we may have a few more going down the road. The Mike Gundy investigation has been concluded, and basically they came up with the deal that Gundy is lacking in player rapport, but he's not a racist.
Yeah, they say he needs to invest more time in building stronger relationships with his student athletes.
Well,
and
if Chuba Hubbard's happy with what they've done as far as progress is concerned, again, who am I to say no? I don't know Gundy. I don't know what's in his past. We had the person that came out, and I don't know if it was a former player who played with him when Gundy was a player, that allegedly he used the N-word back in '89.
It was Alfred Williams who played against him.
Alfred Williams. Again, that was 31 years ago. But as far as the investigators into this is concerned, I'm sure they did a decently thorough investigation, but they've only been at it for like a week. So,
well, they took a year off his contract to cut his pay by $1 million. So there was a consequence there.
Well, yeah, because first of all, it's a it's a PR nightmare for the school. When it comes down to it, you have recruits that are looking at Oklahoma State going, "Ooh, man, is this guy possibly a racist, this coach?" And it doesn't look good. So you've hurt the image of your school, but not enough where they believe you are racist and should be fired. But it's enough where they will certainly hit you as they did with penalties. Once again, in the wallet, in the bank account, where it really, really hurts.
Yeah, they took him from 5 years to 4 years, according to reports, and cut his salary $1 million.
$1 million.
Well. So that's a big hit. Now, granted, they go out this year and have a good year. Does he get that raise? Does he get a raise and a couple of years added on? Probably.
Mm-hmm. I never trust things like that, though. When with like fines for players, professional players, or coaches get fined and things, and I just wonder, do they really pay for it themselves, or are they really docked, or does the organization pay for it? I'm a little suspect as far as that's concerned. So while things have patched up a little bit at Oklahoma State, they've also apparently patched up a little bit at Kansas State, as the players have returned after a week, basically saying they wanted an overhaul, changes. There was the student who came out with racist remarks. And as we talked about on the show with a couple of guests and just between you and I and our listeners, what are you going to do? You can't kick a kid out of school for exercising his right to say whatever he wants to say. As long as he's not threatening anybody with bodily harm, you start kicking those kids out of school, you are going to have a big problem, a big, big lawsuit coming. There is something we call freedom of speech. So those student athletes, I'm like, what do you expect them to do? They're not going to kick the guy out. But what they did was they went ahead, they reevaluated everything that's going on with their diversity, with their the way they deal with students of color, student athletes of color. And obviously it satisfied the team where they are returning back to practice or returning back to the team functions.
Yeah. The school president came out immediately, or not immediately, I guess, but said that we're not going to be expelling students for this type of stuff. But they did a lot of good steps and some as far as diversity programs and things like that. So good to see they were able to get that done, and the players are satisfied with that. So positive steps being made, and everybody can move along. It seems like, and everybody's satisfied with what has been done.
Also from this morning, switching gears to the NBA, Gordon Hayward of the Boston Celtics saying he will leave the bubble when his wife goes into labor with their fourth child, expected sometime in early September. So if I have this correct, which is understandable, he leaves the bubble. He doesn't get back in the bubble.
Yeah, he can.
You can?
Yeah, you just ease it. If you can get permission, if you have permission to leave, you go out, you come back, there's a short quarantine period. I'm not sure if they've said exactly what it is on how many days you have to quarantine on the return to the bubble if you have permission to leave. But no, you can get back in.
Okay, but you're going to have to be – you won't be able to get right back in, like you said.
I think it's like I think they've said for the ones who leave with permission, I think that – again, I don't know if they've actually said it, or if it's just people kind of reporting of what they've discussed. I want to say like a 4 or 5 day, something like that, quarantine on a return.
So a chance he misses some playoff games, right? September's playoff time.
Yeah. I mean,
if they're still around, and
I mean, they may not be even in at that point.
Right. If they're in, but he would miss some games.
When she actually goes into labor, yeah, there's a good chance he'll miss at least a game or maybe more.
Yeah, I mean, he would miss the games that are caused by him being away, and then the possibility of missing a game or two, depending on the schedule, depending whether or not they're still around, when he comes back, being kept out of the bubble. I don't know if you would call it quarantine, but keeping him out of the bubble for a certain amount of time. Pinnacle Roofing and Restoration for all your roofing and home repair needs. Again, ladies, Jay kind of knows what we're going through because he's doing the same thing, holding down the fort in Columbia, South Carolina. He's been on the radio many, many years and does an outstanding job. He's the host of the halftime show on 107.5 The Game out of Columbia. You can follow him on Twitter at jphillips1075. It's always a pleasure to talk with Jay, who joins us now on Sports 56 Middays. Jay, I hope you and the family are well.
We are, Greg. Thank you, sir. Eli, it's great to be back on with you guys over in Memphis. By the way, can I ask? I got some barbecue tips later, so I've got 3 big racks of ribs. So before we get off the air, I want some Memphis tips from you guys relative to my South Carolina way of slow cooking ribs for the 4th. So make sure we come back around to that, okay?
All right.
We need to do this.
Let's make sure texters, our listeners out there, and again, a lot of people off today for the 4th of July weekend, but those that are not and are listening to the program, if you could help our friend Jay Phillips out, text in, I guess, recipes for the ribs. He's going to be cooking up some ribs for the 4th. Text in on the First Bank text line at 67129. So I think the timing is really good because I'd asked you to come on a couple days ago, and then yesterday, your governor laying down the gauntlet about the possibility of a delay in the start of the college football season when it comes to South Carolina, Clemson, I guess all schools in the state of South Carolina. If COVID-19, if the numbers continue to go up, what is the latest as far as that's concerned?
Yeah, it's been a speculation for a while, Greg, and we've been talking about this on my show. In fact, coming up next Wednesday, I have Carolina Athletics Director Ray Tanner coming on for his very latest, and this obviously throws, I don't want to say this throws a real wrinkle into it. I think the governor and his staff are still going to let the schools, unless it just gets so bad, and let's face it, y'all, if it just gets so bad here in South Carolina, it's going to be so bad in so many other places. This is going to be a foregone conclusion. I still think he wants the schools to be able to decide. But, look, I don't know what the latest is going to look like until mid-August, perhaps. And this weekend, I don't want to sound like some, y'all. Y'all know me. I don't want to sound like some pessimist, okay? But my state has 2 of the most popular areas to visit when it comes to coastal tourism on the eastern seaboard, between the greater Charleston area, the greater Myrtle Beach area, and by the way, Hilton Head, and just thousands upon thousands are flocking in right now. So what's this thing going to be like in 2 or 3 weeks? It's funny, Greg, I kind of chuckle when you said to Eli, you don't know COVID, do you? I want to go have fun. I want people to have fun, but I'm a little worried for South Carolina right now. And so I couldn't tell you what the latest is other than I think no football or a delay in football is becoming a very, very real possibility. And 2 or 3 weeks ago, I didn't necessarily believe that.
Well, when the golf tournament was there was a couple of the players, including Justin Thomas, who came out and said, like, Hilton Head was just like a zoo. Like, it was as if nothing was going on. Is that your experience in other parts of the state, or what kind of is the feeling there in Columbia? Are people going out and and are they wearing masks? What's happening there in Columbia?
Well, here's the thing about Columbia. I know Memphis is the same way with all of its suburbs, and you guys have a big metro area that encompasses a couple of counties. Right now, the city of Columbia, Eli, is mandating masks. That's just the city limits of Columbia. I would tell you that in our metro, that's maybe 25% of the population, probably not even that anymore. And nobody else is really requiring it. They're urging it. They're, suggesting it, that kind of thing. So, yeah, there are pockets of Columbia, especially some of the college bar areas. We got a few areas of that with a couple of big schools here. And I think people are trying to have fun like normal. They are having fun like normal. But on the coast, it's a whole different animal. I mean, you can pack 500,000 plus a week, maybe more, especially this week, July 4th, into that Myrtle Beach area. And Charleston already has that many locals plus the tourists. I mean, it's going to be crazy. And if people are trying to do it right, Eli, then I hope they're going to be okay. But I'm not going to be naive. We see what's going on, and you got to think that there's going to be another big jump around.
Look, the health of everybody is the most important thing. But if we just look at the athletic departments around the country, and just from a financial standpoint, many are taking hits. In fact, they're all taking hits, but some worse than others. Obviously, you have the 2 big schools in the University of South Carolina, Clemson, but you have smaller schools as well from South Carolina State, the Furman, and a few others. Have you heard now over the last month or two any of those schools having to drop programs because of the financial strife?
The most notable one here is Furman University up in Greenville cut its baseball program, and it's been around for over 100 years. And,
wow.
And I know a lot of your audience that's Ole Miss and Arkansas and State fans know how big SEC baseball is. Well, And look, Southern Miss as an example is really good, and obviously Vanderbilt is killer. So everybody in your area knows college baseball is a big deal. It's pound for pound even bigger in South Carolina, and you've got the Gamecocks with multiple national titles. You got Coastal with a national title. Clemson goes to Omaha regularly enough. The Citadel has been to the College World Series. Charleston is good. Furman, Wofford. There's a lot. I mean, everybody takes baseball very seriously here. So that was a big deal. And in fact, their baseball alumni is trying to get it back. As for Carolina and Clemson, I still think they're taking kind of a little bit of a wait and see. I do know this, and I don't have details yet, but it was announced a week ago today that several South Carolina athletic department employees will be going on furlough very soon, temporary all. I did not see that there would be any eliminations of jobs. I suppose where you can find one through attrition, and again, I'm speculating on that level, but in terms of furloughs, a large contingent of employees at Carolina in the athletics department will go on furlough. Will Muschamp took the 10%, I believe. Frank Martin, Don Staley, baseball coach Mark Kingston, all have taken significant pay cuts to try to help. Athletics director Ray Tanner, I think, took 10% as well. So did the president of the university, for what it's worth, who's only in his first year. Welcome to Columbia. And so they're doing that. Clemson is doing some similar things, as I understand, but I'm not sure they've given as many details as Carolina has as of yet. But I can only imagine, y'all, that at some point Clemson has to do the same thing.
Where is South Carolina right now as far as the football players back on campus, and have they announced positive tests?
South Carolina has not wanted to announce positives. Clemson obviously has. I can't tell you. I will ask that question next week, Eli, when Coach Tanner is on my show. So I don't want to sit here and tell you they haven't had any. I was a little surprised when Coach Pruitt the other day said that Tennessee had 0, so that's good. I mean, that's a pleasant surprise. But yeah, all the Gamecock players have been back since the second week of June. They're doing groups of 8 to 10 and pretty much everything. Still no meeting room sessions for film. Everything is still done virtually there. So the in-person stuff is basically come in, get checked, go work out in the weight room, can't take a shower at the facility, and you leave and you go do it all again the next day, and they just come in shifts. So they're trying to contain it. But again, y'all, we've all been in college, and it's you know how you feel about yourself in college. You want to go have fun, and B, you think you're invincible. So at some point, again, common sense is going to tell you somebody's going to get it.
Well, and that's the thing too. Like, talked about when you look at the numbers, a college kid is going to look at this and go, "Okay, if I get it." So
be
what?
it.
So what? I'm not going to die from it. Like your chances of dying from it in their age group, and especially if you're healthy, are minute. I could see where college kids are going to be like, am I really going to adjust my life that much over maybe getting sick for a few days? Like I absolutely from my college days understand that mentality.
And I would tell you again, and you guys obviously have big schools in Memphis too, so I'm not telling anybody anything they don't know about a big city with a big college and other smaller colleges all in it. That's happening right now. Like I said, the 5 Points area here in Columbia is the main college bar hangout area, and they've had to curb a few things of late, but for a while it was sort of, a free-for-all. And so, again, college kids are going to have fun. I think coaches are stressing to their players, you can be safer in your dorm room or your apartment, but, can't watch them 24/7.
Hey, look, switching gears to the NBA, I wanted to ask you about John Morant, but yet Damian Lillard come out the other day and said, I don't even trust that all our professional players, adults, will be able to stay in their rooms and not go out and want to do something. So we're talking about college kids, for goodness sakes. These are professionals, and Lillard's not so sure what's going on with that. But you and I have chatted before about John Morant and the South Carolina tie. So do all of a sudden we have all these Grizzlies fans now in South Carolina?
And Ja's a lot closer to Columbia than Zion was. Ja grew up about a half hour or so from where I'm sitting right now, give or take. Same hometown as Ray Allen, by the way. How is it for Ja to be the second most famous player from his hometown? Because Ray's already in the Hall of Fame, right? I think he is. I think he's had a 5-year point. I can't remember how old Ray's my age. So he's got to be in the Hall of Fame by now. Anyway.
You know what's funny, though? We always talk about Ja and the keys to the city. Man, if it comes down to Ray and him, he's not going to get the key. He's got like a key to a couple of cities, I think.
Yeah, Ray's still got a key that says Dalzell on it that he wears from time to time, I suppose, but he'll hand it off to Ja at some point. There is a lot more NBA excitement around here, and I think it did perk up, honestly, more because of Zion directly. And as y'all know, Zion and Ja played on the same AAU team from here in South Carolina. Ja's a year older. But, yeah, there is. I have felt a little more interest. And not only that, but recently former Gamecock Perry Dozier signed a contract to stay with the Denver Nuggets through the playoffs. So people are starting to watch him a little bit more. Darius Thornwell has been back and forth with the Clippers and a couple of other teams of late. So coupled with local guy John Morant and then right up the road Zion Williamson, it's more fun. And I think it's funny, though, guys, from both schools, Carolina and Clemson, it comes, with a little bit of lament because they realized that neither one of those kids were in-staters.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's still kind of baffling in some people's minds, but not always for me, especially a kid like Zion. But Ja really blossomed when he got out of South Carolina. It might have been good for him to get out of Zion's shadow, but there are definitely people here starting to pay a lot more attention to what that kid's about, and he's just so much fun to watch.
When he was coming out, when he was in his last couple of years of high school, there was he a known product there, or was he what was the feelings around Ja at that time?
Known, yes, because again he was on a solid AAU team, but I don't know that he was even third, fourth, fifth in interest level in the state. Then, like I said, I think getting out and blossoming a little bit and having a chance to be his own guy really helped him. There was interest. I mean, there was certainly interest. The Gamecocks talked to him. Clemson talked to him. Other schools from around here. I can't tell you who. Georgia maybe was over looking at him a little bit, but don't quote me on that. I know there were a few here and there. There was interest, but I think by the time the interest was real, Eli, it was all about Murray State, man. Yeah. And like a lot of kids do, and I always applaud it, you stick with the one that showed interest the longest and you felt really good about the entire time. And I think when some schools jump in oh, yeah, you are good, aren't you? Good for a kid to go stick with his gut the first time, and clearly it worked out.
Jay Phillips from 107.5 The Game in Columbia, South Carolina, joining us on the program. One final topic for you, Jay. The Redskins, I know before the Panthers even existed, the Carolinas, maybe more so North Carolina, but a lot of supporters of the Redskins in that region of the country. Now, of course, they have the Panthers. But I wanted to get your take on the Redskins, and do you believe now with the pressure from FedEx, Nike, that Daniel Snyder is going to be back so far into a corner that he's going to have to make the change?
Let's go with that last part first. And you guys remind me, Fred Smith of FedEx is a partial owner of the team. Yes. Is that right?
That's correct.
So I think that internal pressure can be strong. What are his fellow owners going to finally do? The commissioner in this one can certainly say public things, but let's be honest, this pressure is going to have to come from Dan Snyder's 30 other owners. I won't include the Green Bay Packers. They're going to have to say something to him this time if it starts to harm the league. If this begins to hurt the Redskins, it's one thing, and clearly that may already be happening sponsorship-wise. But if it trickles out, and I'm not trying to say anything here other than just the obvious. If it starts to trickle out and affect the National Football League as a whole, if a sponsor of the entire league starts to say something, or multiple sponsors of the league start to say something, and advertising dollars, marketing dollars stop flowing in, revenue dollars stop flowing in, then I think that pressure ramps up tremendously. Beyond that, the moral question's been out there for a long time. Without getting into the details, I remember Chris Rock doing a comedy bit on that nickname in the 90s.
Yeah.
I mean, and so, this is still nothing new. Snyder has proven that he doesn't want to do it, and that's an understatement. But if the money starts to make a difference, if that franchise, which is worth, $3-something billion, begins to lose real value, look, business is business. There needs to be a moral portion of this clearly at work. It seems to not be there or be ignored, and that's more my opinion. But all of it's going to matter. As for interest around here, Greg, you're not wrong. There were a lot of Redskins fans around here, especially perhaps in the 80s when they were great. A lot of Cowboys fans, a lot of Steelers fans. It was always sort of a melting pot, even some Miami Dolphin fans. And sometimes wherever Gamecock or Clemson players might go play had a little interest at the time. But, yeah, there were a ton of Redskins fans around here when I was growing up. Now I think that generation has sort of shifted a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right, there's a lot of Panther fans too. But if you ask me before this football season starts, will there be an announcement that the Washington Redskins have a different nickname? I'm going to tell you for now, no. I don't think Snyder does.
Well,
see, you talked about the sponsors of the whole league and everything else. I mean, FedEx fits that bill. That's the thing.
Yes.
I mean, FedEx isn't just the Redskins. I mean, they sponsor the FedEx Air and Ground Players of the Year. Like, FedEx has a lot of money invested in the NFL beyond what they invest just in the Redskins.
Yeah, well, you guys tell me. Is Mr. Smith worth more than Mr. Snyder? Could he buy him out? I mean, is there finally going to be a number where Dan Snyder lets go of this thing? Can Fred Smith put a group together to say, you know what, Dan, it's been a good run for you, buddy. You hadn't done squat with the team, but here's $3 billion.
I don't think so. I think Snyder's worth more, but I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think. I think Snyder will change the name before he gets to that point.
Well, I would, because if you think the United States Senate is an exclusive club, I think, again, 31 people that own NFL teams is way more exclusive and more lucrative than being a senator. Too.
Right,
I would stay in the club, too, Eli. I agree.
I'll tell you one thing. If he doesn't do it now, he's never going to do it as owner of the Redskins. Once he's out, maybe it'll change. But right now, where our society is, where we're going in the society, which is in a positive direction, he doesn't change it now. He's never going to want to change it.
And I tell you, sometimes when I think about things like this will bring a smile to your face to bring it back. I miss Reggie White and the Memphis Showboats, man.
You're aging yourself, buddy. Thank you,
I know.
Jay. I appreciate it.
I love the USFL.
Stay well, my friend. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, guys. Always a pleasure. Thank you. Talk to you soon.
Take care.
We didn't get the barbecue tip.
Oh, damn it.
I want to hear how he was going to cook his ribs.
Oh, man. No, we were trying to get also tips for him from our listeners. So send in the tips via the text line, First Bank text line 67129, and I'll go ahead and I'll text Jay with your recommendations for the ribs. Okay, if the Redskins do change their name, there's a name out there that's gaining a lot of support. We'll tell you about that when we return. This is Sports 56 Middays on Real Sports Talk, Sports 56, 96.1 and 87.7.
Sports Time on Sports.
Wallace, the senior editor, contributor, and analyst for Grind City Media. You can follow him on Twitter at @MyMikeCheck. He joins us now on Sports 56 Middays. Mike, I hope you and the family are doing well.
Yeah, we're hanging in there, man. Basically just taking it day by day, dealing with the challenges of this time. But, we're here, man. We're here plugging away. And I hope you and your family and all of the listeners are out there are safe and healthy. And even of those who aren't, we're praying for them and praying for recoveries and all of those things as we combat, obviously the ongoing coronavirus situation, as well as some of the other things going on in the country. So best wishes to all of you guys out there, too.
Thank you, Michael. Well said. Yeah, that's usually my stock answer when somebody says, hey, how you doing? I'm hanging in there. I mean, it is. It's literally day to day. I know life really is day to day. We never know when our time is up. But as far as this year, it's been crazy. It's been absolutely crazy. We don't know what's happening from day to day. We do know that the NBA is planning to resume the season. How confident are you that we don't have major issues in the bubble, that the season not only goes off, but it ends up wrapping up with a champion? What do you feel right now that the chances are?
It goes back to what you just got finished saying. It's. I don't think anyone is absolutely confident that everything is going to go off without a hitch. We're seeing right now the NBA just released its updated coronavirus testing, and 25 players out of more than 300 have tested positive. We've seen practice facilities have to be shut down in the last couple of days in some major markets as teams try to get themselves ready to head to Orlando. We've seen an all-NBA all-star center in Nikola Jokic, who's absolutely essential to Denver's chances, struggling to basically get back into the country to travel with his team after testing positive for coronavirus in his native country. So these are going to be ongoing issues. Everything is going to be fluid. But I do trust that, what Adam Silver has said is that once these guys and once these teams get into Orlando, that's going to be the safest place probably in the country that anyone can be, from a testing, from a medical input, from health officials also having a say in things. That's the most comprehensive way to do it. And the NBA is going to be the biggest test case to see how this thing goes. But there's still enthusiasm going into the situation.
Michael, the Grizzlies having some the Zoom press conferences here the last couple of days. Yesterday, Ja Morant did one, and one of the big topics of discussion about him is that that he has put on this extra weight, some extra muscle during this time off, saying he put on 12 pounds. How much do you think that helps him? Obviously the rest of the season, but going forward of being able to put a little extra muscle on his frame.
It's going to help them, and the thing is, I look at it differently. I look at it as strength and durability more so than raw lbs, raw pounds, because his body frame is just not conducive to putting on excess weight right now. Yeah. I remember I came along with Allen Iverson, and I remember when Allen came into the league, every year people kept saying, "Man, when is he going to put on weight? When is he going to put on weight?" But the question was, how much stronger can he get? How much more can he fill out? How much more strength can he add in terms of taking the brunt of pick and roll screens and those kind of things and fighting through screens? And I think Ja is going to go through that same process. It's good that he puts on the weight. A lot of guys add muscle and then they work it off because they're constantly in motion and running once the season gets here. So I think this is going to help build out his core. He's also going to maintain that explosive athleticism. And then when you add on to the fact that in his mind, he feels like he's going to be more defensively competitive now with that added strength. It's only going to be all good for him as he moves forward. He's only 21. He turns 21 soon. And it's one of those situations where his body, just like Jaren Jackson, their bodies are still maturing into adulthood. Mm-hmm. So there's room to grow for sure.
Give him a lot of credit, he and his family, especially his pops, for doing what they did and renovating that garage, making it a gym, and giving him that opportunity to put on that muscle during this downtime. We're joined by Michael Wallace. At My Mic Check is the Twitter handle, senior editor and contributor analyst with Grind City Media. So he was also asked about the disrespect card, the whole New Orleans Pelicans thing, and that the league wants the Pelicans to get in. They want them to get that 8th spot. And all. And so he addressed that. But it seems like the Grizzlies and really this entire city and community can always use that disrespect card going in. What are your thoughts about that as they get ready to go and play again?
I think that's overblown a little bit. These guys are all in the NBA. You know what I mean? The Grizzlies have to earn their respect. They're a young team, the youngest team in the campus bubble environment, frankly. If they make the 16-team playoffs, they will be the youngest rotation among the 16 teams there. Mm-hmm. So it's one of those situations where, again, a year ago, half this roster wasn't even here. They still have a lot to prove, but it's not to sort of satisfy outside critics or skeptics. This is about, and Taylor Jenkins has maintained this throughout the season, it's about what we do. It's about how we continue to move forward and get better each day, mm-hmm. and stay competitive. And when you see that development take place internally every single step of the season, you can be confident in where you are and what you do. The Grizzlies didn't get here by mistake or by accident or by luck. They've earned their way into the seed that they're in right now. And now they have a chance to regroup and hold on to it to further prove that, this is where they need to be.
Michael, how do you see Justice Winslow kind of being incorporated into the team now? Do you expect him to be starting right off the bat down in Orlando? How do you see that playing out?
Knowing how Taylor thinks and being around him throughout this year, it's going to be a earn it. It's going to be a, hey, you're going to have your opportunity. Obviously, they traded for him to be a core piece that they're going to grow and groom alongside Jaren and alongside, Ja and Dylan, guys that have, and even Jonas, who have multi-year contracts ahead of them. I do imagine he's going to be groomed for a starter. He's not the kind of player that you just, sort of bring off the bench with spot duty minutes here and there. Mm-hmm. Justice is a high-volume minute guy. He plays on both ends of the floor. He's a guy that you can adapt your system around. He's going to help Ja by taking over the ball handling because he can sort of be a big point forward. and allow Ja to be able to maneuver off the ball some. And he can also play the 2, the 3, and the 4 and because of his body type. So, they called him 1 through 4 when he was in Miami. And this is a guy, now granted, he's nowhere near the kind of player LeBron James has turned out to be. But the Miami Heat drafted Justice Winslow to be the kind of prototype to step into that role that LeBron vacated the previous year when he left Miami. So that's the kind of player and the versatility that he came into this league hoping to reach. And the Grizzlies expect him to get to that point at some stage.
So Taylor Jenkins has had a lot of success with a pretty deep rotation, as you know, throughout this first year for him as the head coach. In the playoffs, or in the 8 games left in the regular season, and then hopefully in the postseason, do you see a reduction of the rotation, or do you see him staying the same, which has been so successful throughout this season?
I see him staying the same. He has a full complement of bodies now. It looks like just about everyone is going to have a chance to go down to Orlando next week and be available for 5-on-5, the next level of ramping up to the scrimmages and then the playing at the end of the month. This is a coaching staff that easily played 11 and sometimes 12 and didn't hesitate. And the thing is, everyone who got that opportunity showed something. I mean, we're talking about when the season was suspended, it was John Conchar and Josh Jackson, 2 guys that spent the bulk of their first half of the season with the hustle, coming in, making key contributions for the Grizzlies at that point. So he's confident that he could play as many as 12 to 13. You can't necessarily do that in some level, but when you factor in how everyone's legs have to get back in the NBA playing shape, what kind of health issues you might be dealing with down there, what kind of soft tissue strains and stresses you might be dealing with from nagging injuries, and God forbid any kind of COVID situation that takes effect, you're going to have to be confident in your entire roster to get through this process. It's almost like Survivor at the NBA level when you go down there and have to get into that bubble situation.
When you look at the schedules and knowing the Grizzlies obviously already have the 3.5 game lead, so do you like their chances to make the playoffs?
Oh, I love it. I love their chances. And that's not putting any pressure on them. I can look at this thing objectively. And, anyone of the teams that are below them would love to absolutely trade places with the Grizzlies right now. You're up 3.5 games. You have 8 games to play. And even if you slip to 9, you can still finish within 4 games of 8. So basically, you have a 7.5 game window with 8 games to play to still make the play-in at the very least. And so I'm not saying that they're playing with house money necessarily, because you don't want to back your way into anything. But I do think these first 3 games that they play in Orlando on their schedule, you're talking about 3 games that are going to be absolutely essential and huge for this team to set the tone. So how they play over these first 3 games, I think, defines how the rest of the 5 and then the first round of the playoffs go for them in terms of where they'll be.
Yeah, people initially freaked out when they saw the schedule. Oh, look, New Orleans got an easy schedule and the Grizzlies got one of the toughest. Well, guess what? The Grizzlies had one of the toughest finishes in the league, and the Pelicans had an easy finish. I think by virtue of where they are now with 8 games, as you just talked about, and 3.5 game lead, I think it's a better situation than they would be if they had to play out the whole season.
That's a great point. That's a great point, because the thing is, they had 17 games left. So you still maintained your 3.5 game edge, but you have half as many games left to play in terms of potentially losing it or potentially having the challenges of holding on to it. So you make a great point. And I think basically with the way this thing was sort of, I don't want to say rigged, but the way it was set up designed for the Grizzlies to somehow end up in a pre-playoff series with the Pelicans, to create that intrigue, and then the winner of that series, you got either your number 1 overall pick or your number 2 overall pick, who's going to be Rookie of the Year, going against LeBron James and Anthony Davis in the first round. So the NBA is going to get at the very least an initial playoff series to set up the playoffs. And if all goes well for the Grizzlies, and I think if they go 4-4, I think they're fine. They go 4-4 in the 8 games, I think they can, bypass even a play-in at that point and just go straight in from that standpoint. But if they could do that, they'll be right where they need to be. But hey, it's intriguing. It's a lot of storylines there, and I'm looking forward to see how it plays out.
How do you expect teams to, especially like a team like Milwaukee, who's pretty much the number one seed, and who, I don't know how much seeding matters anyway for matchups, obviously no home court advantage, but how do you see them approaching like these 8 games with guys like the Greek Freak and how much they play them?
The Milwaukee Bucks should import all of the bubble wrap they can in the country. Any bubble wrap available, import it to Orlando, wrap Giannis up,
bubble
wrap
wrap
a couple of the other guys up. Yes, bubble wrap in the bubble. Yes. And, they're not going to lose their lead. I know Toronto's right there and Boston is right there. But as you said, whether you're 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, in terms of home court advantage, that's out of the window. It's just a matter of who you want to match up with and what team you feel like stylistically you have a better chance to continue to advance. I think that's more of an issue on the West side because I do think some teams in the West, whether you're the Lakers or the Clippers, whether you're Dallas or Oklahoma City, who you match up better with in that first round might determine whether you want to be 6 or 5 or 7 in terms of that situation. But in the East, those top 4 or 5 teams are all pretty much in lockstep, but I think the Bucks are a little bit ahead of those guys, and they have something to prove. And Giannis can't afford to get hurt. I don't even think he shouldn't even be playing other than just for conditioning and repetition and rhythm. I'd be surprised if when the Grizzlies play those last 3 teams, Toronto, the Bucks, and the Celtics at the end of their 8-game schedule, I'd be shocked if any of those frontline guys are just out there other than just a few minutes just to get some rhythm and some exercise.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's probably before Gordon Hayward has to leave, but we talked about that earlier with Gordon Hayward when his wife is ready to give birth, is going to leave the bubble and then have to come back could affect where if Boston's still alive in the playoffs could affect whether or not he's going to miss a few games. Michael Wallace.
Yeah, Mike Conley too. Mike Conley too.
Oh,
Mike
really?
Conley's in the same situation. Yes.
Oh.
Yes, Mike Conley and Mary are expecting their if what I read is correct, they're expecting their 3rd child, a girl this time. He has 2 boys now.
Good for them.
Yeah, and he's going to have to do the same situation where he's going to get the exemption to leave the campus and then come back, but he's going to have to go under quarantining and testing on his way back too. So that's to me, guys, that's the biggest challenge of this whole situation. I think the guys can pretty much, if they do the right things, they can stay healthy, avoid the COVID situation. But I think the biggest challenge is how do they adjust to not being around their loved ones for that long of a time? It's just so unnatural to go from 4 months of nonstop family time to 3 months of absolutely disconnection from your family other than your devices and digital video. So that's the toughest part to me.
So do you think Damian Lillard is off base, or do you think he's more on with what he thinks could happen, that he doesn't believe that all the players will adhere to staying in their rooms and doing what's right?
Hey, we can't even get all the people to wear masks, and we see all the devastating numbers out here.
Right.
So you mean to tell me you expect, it's guys are going to make decisions, man, and some guys are going to be, responsible and more responsible than others. But what you just hope is that the guys who want to gamble a little bit and take risks realize that they're not just gambling with their own health and safety. They're compromising potentially their entire team,
right,
and the league at large. Because all it takes is, a couple of, players to have this thing spread. And I get where Damian Lillard's coming from. He's skeptical because this is unnatural. This is something that guys have never had to go through before. And there are going to be some guys that get, sideways with it. But hopefully it's not to the detriment of what the league is trying to do to bring this league together for a number of worthy causes that go even beyond basketball.
It's off of the Grizzlies, Michael. I did want to ask you. It works out well that we had you on today as a guy who went to an HBCU. Your thoughts on Makur Maker making the decision today as a top 20 player to commit to Howard?
Man, thanks. I'm glad you asked that, and that's a historic move. It's the first time in the ESPN Top 100 Prep rankings that go back to 2007 that a top 100 guy, top 20 guy has committed to an HBCU. And Makur Maker, God bless him and his family for making this stance and taking this statement and actually putting action behind it. But I also think that I don't want people to get lost into, hey, how could he turn away Kentucky or Memphis or UCLA and go to a school like Howard? Well, first and foremost, man, Howard produces the most African American medical experts in the nation among any school. Howard is one of the top academic institutions on the East Coast in terms of the kind of scholars they have and scholarships that they offer. My daughter is a Howard student right now on a full ride scholarship in a STEM program. So I know what that school is all about. As a Washington, D.C. native, who grew up in the shadows of Howard and spent a lot of time on that campus, this is major. Now, here's the other thing, too. When you look at potentially his NBA stock, there are guys, Mitchell Robinson, the center for the New York Knicks, didn't even go to high school, didn't even finish high school. He didn't even finish and go to college.
Right.
And he got drafted. You see guys go IMG route and get drafted. So it doesn't, if you're good, they're going to find you. Mm-hmm. Don't discount what this guy can do in a situation. He's doing the best thing for himself academically and in terms of what he feels is smart. So good for him. And you hope to see more kids have open minds when it comes to making these kind of decisions.
Yeah, well said. Last thing for you, I know that obviously the announcers that are there, it looks like that some of those national guys will actually go into the bubble. That was the latest I read about. But the regional games, including the Grizzlies games, the broadcast teams will be in studio. As far as other media, will you guys send anybody? Will you go down? Will anybody from Grind City actually go into the bubble?
No, I don't believe so. I still have to get some more clearances on exactly what that plan is. I think that there may be another window once the 8 teams that won't make the playoffs leave. There could be an opportunity to, again, once families are able to come in, once the playoffs start, it might be an opportunity to circle back. But initially, our plan right now is to cover it remotely from the broadcast on both situations. Mm-hmm. And then, these Zoom calls that we've been on, it's not anything that we're accustomed to because it's new, but it's not that bad either, man. I mean, we all get our questions in. These guys are relaxed and they want to do it. It's new for the players, too. So we're going to still provide comprehensive coverage at Grind City Media. We also have some great other reporters in this market, too, that are doing great jobs, both television, which you're doing, Greg, and also, the commercial appeal and the Daily Memphian and everything else. So you're going to get comprehensive Grizzlies coverage, but it's not going to be anything like you can get from Grind City Media, and I think you guys know that, too.
Michael, listen, we always – look, hey, good plug and a plug that makes an awful lot of sense because you guys do an outstanding job, and you specifically, we can't thank you enough for your time as always. You bring it every time you come on. Listen, stay well, keep that family well, and we'll talk to you soon, okay?
Hey, Greg, one thing, though, man, I know I got to go, but, again, as a Washington, D.C. guy, I know you spent time up there, too, man. Yeah. You didn't even ask the lifelong Redskins fan a question about the Redskins thing that's going on right now.
I got so many I'm going to ask you here. We're going to go long because I had so many things I wanted to ask you. There was a couple other things I even wanted to ask you that I didn't even get to, and so I didn't even think about the Redskins. But, all right, so – I'll give you my quick thoughts. I'm going to get your thoughts. I think Snyder he's going to have to make the change because we are living in a different country than we were just 2 months ago. If this guy doesn't make the change now, I think not only FedEx, you already heard what Nike's doing, they're all going to abandon him. They're going to, financially, it's going to be a disaster. But just for human kindness, I mean, make the change. All right, what do you think?
I think, for so long, and again, I've evolved with this because I grew up literally 2 miles away from RFK Stadium.
Wow.
When the Redskins went to the Super Bowl and John Riggins had the stiff arm on that fourth down play, my entire neighborhood rushed outside. and we rushed outside because we knew that clinched the Super Bowl in that one. So you're talking about a guy who we used to play trivia at my table at my grandma's house about who can name every single starter on the Redskins every single year. So this is something that's personal to me. I went to Grambling because Doug Williams talked to me about that school when he was quarterback for Washington when he won the Super Bowl. I'll say this, man. I've evolved because I kept believing that the franchise always said that they had conversations and relationships with Native American tribes that weren't offended by it. So I gave them the benefit of the doubt for all of these years. But in this time, it's clear now that you have to say, look, even though we feel the way we feel, if they feel that way, this is a divisive issue. It's almost like the Confederate flag issue. Mm-hmm. At some point, let's move forward together in a more progressive look. And I think there's so many different ways that you can change the name to, and it still works. Hey, look, Abe Poland and those guys did it with the Washington Bullets because of the negative connotation of bullets at a time when there was violence in D.C. and across the world. If the Bullets can do it, the Washington Redskins can do it too, and hopefully they get a good resolution that everybody can move forward with that proud franchise.
Have you seen the Red Tails and the possibility of making it the Red Tails where you would keep the same color scheme and you would honor the Tuskegee Airmen? Have you seen that story?
I like that. I saw that story. I also saw the Bravehearts, which allows them to sort of keep some of the Native American syntax to it, which was something that a Bleacher Report piece from 2013 said that name was trademarked by one of Snyder's close associates or neighbors. But frankly, I was thinking about it today, man. To me, if you ask me, I just simply love the Washington freedom. You know what I mean? Washington freedom. And just go with something that you can't go really with liberty. You don't want to go Constitution. I don't think you want to even throw armed forces or anything like that into it. Just go Washington freedom. And to me, that would be my vote. It might not make sense to a lot of people, but I think where we need to head and what we need to think about, it's going to be a lot of good ideas that come out of this.
Thank you, my friend. Stay well. Always appreciate it.
All right, you guys take care.
Michael Wallace from Grind City Media. I was just looking at a graphic here. We have a monitor in the studio, and ESPN Sports Center's on. The Redskins in 2005, the amount of money they gave for the naming rights, $205 million.
Yeah, I mean, it's
healthy investment.
There's a lot of investment there.
One other thing, I know we're late for a break here. Going back to what we talked about with Michael for the most part, the Grizzlies, of course. On this date in 2001, the NBA Board of Governors approved the move of the Grizzlies franchise from Vancouver to Memphis beginning with the 01-02 season. So it was approved by the NBA Board of Governors 19 years ago today. In their 6 seasons at Vancouver, the Grizzlies were 101 and 359, a .220 winning percentage, and 0 playoff appearances. This is Middays on Real Sports Talk, Sports 56, 96.1 and 87.7.
Broadcasting from the Family Leisure Studio, we are Sports 56, 96.1.
With Jeff Kerr, NFL writer for CBS Sports. You can follow him on Twitter at Jeff Kerr CBS. Jeff, thanks for joining us. Hope you're well.
Hey, I'm doing well. Hope you guys are having a good 4th of July weekend.
Yeah, so far so good. It's interesting yesterday with the news from FedEx. As I just mentioned, FedEx is our title and presenting sponsor of our show, and of course means an awful lot, that company here in the city of Memphis. And while the controversy of the Redskins nickname has always been there, it's kind of been pushed aside by Daniel Snyder throughout the years, and FedEx has been a big supporter of the Redskins, so obviously they knew it was there. But now, with everything that's going on in our society, in our country, it seems like maybe the time is right, and now the Redskins are going to seriously look at that possibility. Jeff, do you think we're going down that avenue where a change will be made?
I think a change may happen before the season, honestly. It seems like the Redskins are trying to get the ball rolling on this. And I read Daniel Snyder's statement. It doesn't – how can I put it in words? It doesn't look like it says much, but it speaks volumes. And when an organization says we're going to review something, that means it's likely going to change. So I don't know if it'll actually change before the season starts, but I wouldn't be surprised if it did.
That's the thing, because if they do this thorough review, as they say they're going to do, and then they come back and say, yeah, we thoroughly reviewed it and we decided it wasn't offensive. We're going to keep it. Like that seems even worse than just saying no, we're not going to do anything. Like if you thoroughly review it and still say no, we're going to keep it, that's really bad.
Yeah, and I'm looking at a timeline here of when the Redskins. I'm actually writing a piece for CBS Sports on it. Daniel Snyder and Roger Goodell basically doubling down multiple times. I mean, it was only in 2013 Daniel Snyder said, it's that simple. Never. You can use cats. We'll never change the name. And I'm like, okay, maybe he just won't do it. I always thought Daniel Snyder would sell the Washington Redskins before he would actually change the name, but money talks, and FedEx, Pepsi, Nike pulling all merchandise from their website, that's over like $700 million between the 3 organizations that sponsor them, 3 huge partners in the Redskins becoming one of the richest franchises in the NFL, saying, we're out if you guys don't change. And Daniel Snyder, the businessman that he is thinking, man, if I change this name, I'm going to sell new merchandise, I'm going to keep these guys, I'm going to get new partners, I'm going to get new fans, and all the protests go away. So, I mean, in a way, he's going to end up making more money than he's ever dreamed of.
I used to cover the Redskins, not on a daily basis, but I was in television in Maryland, so we'd cover the Redskins games. And look, I understood. I mean, I'm not naive. I saw the name, Redskins, but all I kept hearing was throughout the years, and especially since Snyder took ownership of the team, was that they talked to many different tribal leaders, many different Native Americans about the name, and that they love the name. They think it's respectful, that they're encouraging their heritage and their history and all that. And so I brought this up at the beginning of the show, kind of playing devil's advocate, although I do believe a change is necessary, especially in the times that we're living in. But if you polled the Native Americans, and it's probably impossible to have comments from all of them, and they said, no, we want this to stay. Didn't that happen with Florida State? There was controversy about the Seminoles and things of that nature. So I wonder because what's important is how they feel, right, Jeff? It's not important how I feel as a Caucasian or even African Americans. What matters is how the Native Americans feel about that.
I'm the same way as a Caucasian, man. It shouldn't matter what I think of that team name. I mean, my opinion certainly doesn't count. I'd rather poll Native Americans, where they think it's offensive or not. I mean, we're told what that name means, and I don't like saying that name, but I use it as a team brand. I'm not using it as a racial slur here. But at the same time, let's ask. My one college professor was Native American, and he thought that name was offensive and it was hurtful. And so I went by that. I'm like, okay, look, that's your opinion, and your opinion weighs a lot more than mine because you are Native American. You're that blood. I'm not. And but I've also seen articles from the Washington Post, and the Redskins have stood by this. Well, we polled 71% of Native Americans, and it was like, I think the sample size was 20,000. So I don't know if that's small or not, but if 71% of them are saying we don't find that name offensive, then I guess that's what they roll with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean that's it's a weird situation because how many percent, I guess, would you need to say they are offended by it before it becomes an issue? Like that, that's the other thing too. Like if it's only a small percent, but some of them are offended by it. Should you change it just because there is a small number offended?
Exactly, and I mean, it's such a tough topic to discuss too because you mentioned Florida State Seminoles. They take a lot of pride in that team, and I know people have said, "Oh, they got to get rid of what's their chant?" I always forget their chant. I always think of the Atlanta Braves tomahawk.
Well, it's similar, is it not?
Yeah, it pretty much is. And I'm like, well, they don't find it offensive down there, and the Seminole tribe's still prominent down in that Tallahassee area. And I think this all reemerged when Rob Manfred basically said the Chief Wahoo logo was going away from the Cleveland Indians. And I actually went to a Cleveland Indians ball game that year. It's the first time I was ever at Progressive Field. And I've, just being a curious journalist, I was asking people, look, do you find this offensive? And they're like, you guys know we're buying up all the caps, right? Like, these are going to be collector's items someday. And I'm like, okay, I guess that's how I feel about it.
Right. Well, again, it's one of those deals where I think that because of the direction we're moving in, you almost, whether you want to do it or not, and obviously Daniel Snyder doesn't want to do it, but I think because of the pressure not only from, and most importantly, from his sponsors, but also from society in general. Because doesn't that seem like we're, Jeff, because of what's happened with the Black Lives Movement over the last couple of months, that they're singing a different tune in the National Football League, from ownership to management to coaches, whereas 4 years ago, whenever Colin Kaepernick took that first knee, it was let's move on. This guy's going to be kind of ostracized and blacklisted, and we're going to move on. But now it's a whole different tune we're singing, correct?
Oh, I agree. I think the thing was, remember the old saying, if you keep ignoring the problem will eventually go away?
Right.
Yeah. I feel like that's what the NFL did. And, in a way, the problem did kind of disappear, but then it reared its ugly head back. It's almost like the lie that you told several years ago, it eventually caught up to you. And that's what I feel like the NFL did with the whole